Welcome to Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes. This is a talk video. Happy New Year, everyone. It is January, and that means it's time for our quarterly speculation video. We've been doing this for over a year now, our regular 3-month look back and look forward, where we try to anticipate the game so we can make some preparations, plan ahead, trying to do this fast before CG makes an announcement. Last quarter responsibilities prevented a timely and relevant video. We begin with the schedule. The way this usually works is we have a few varietals of Lucasfilm related releases from CG. We have content released around 6 months after a show or movie. This is most common, Chrysanthemum being a recent example. We have content that is released in conjunction with Lucasfilm, the original Bad Batch, Rogue One characters, Solo. This is where CG has some coordination with Lucasfilm and is releasing new characters at nearly the same time as they enter the Star Wars universe. And we have content that is released in anticipation of new Lucasfilm media, but without coordination. Radis, the Inquisitors, those were characters that are related to a show, but their tie-ins wouldn't have required any extra knowledge for CG. That's what we're trying to mine here with the schedule. Looking back from the last several quarters, we had Andor, Tales of the Jedi, and Kenobi. With each of those, I think there are some overarching characters who may appear, but I think we won't see any SWGOH content from those shows until subsequent seasons, so I'm more interested in what's coming. For this quarter, I think there's a lot we can speculate on from the final varietal of SWGOH Lucasfilm related releases, where CG can make characters in anticipation of the new shows. Some of these we've talked about for several speculation videos, and some have been part of the supposed leaks, but regardless of their veracity, we can still speculate on timing. We have just yesterday the release of Bad Batch Season 2. In mid to late February, we're going to be seeing Mando Season 3. And by mid-March, we will see the release of Jedi Survivor, the Fallen Order sequel. Now, I don't expect CG to be heavy on releases this quarter, but they could easily make one synergistic marquee release per month and maybe even average slightly more than one over the quarter, with 1 month with a second release. But this is where I would expect CG to be drawing from, so any factions that could potentially be related to these characters is where I would be giving extra gear and attention to set myself up to take advantage if characters do get released. Because what we try to do here is anticipate where the ball is going so that we can find any edge that we can in Grand Arena. We're going to start with the safe bets. Crosshair, notable that he wasn't part of the Season 1 releases and is an obvious character to come to the game soon. And with Bad Batch Season 2 being just out, he's a clear contender to be announced as early as next week. With how Starkiller and Aphra are pulling away a lot of Empire units, Crosshair could be a leader to bring together a few of these Empire stragglers, or depending on how the season goes, CG could look at him as a potential neutral character if they know things we don't. But if that's the case, we'll have to wait a few weeks before CG releases him. Kind of how like Omega wasn't released until after the Bad Batch season was released, whereas the other Bad Batch characters were released before the first season came out. If a character could spoil something, the characters have been held back. Cal Kestis is another safe bet this quarter. I'm expecting his release to be timed with the Survivor release, so at the end of March in that area. This last Conquest, it would have been really nice to have a full squad of Rebel Jedi. Right now there's only 4. And it made me think about just how Galactic Republic focused all of the Jedi units are, understandably, but I'd like to see the Jedi branch away a little bit more, and Cal Kestis could be a way to accomplish that. And now we take a step down into the decent bets range. Purge Trooper, another one I've been anticipating for a while, a Jedi Survivor tie-in that would also call back to Kenobi. Could have the potential to help boost Empire, Troopers, and Inquisitors, but I'm more down on him than I've been in the past, only because the Inquisitor faction has received so much attention recently that it's unlikely his addition would be intended to help that faction right now. So they may further delay this one until like Kenobi Season 2. Now here's some more expansive speculation. Casca Reeves. Mando Season 3 is going to be Mandalorian heavy. It would be sensible timing for CG to revisit the Mando faction and fill in some of their holes. Without Maul, they never really fulfilled their promise, and I tried. With a few more, CG could create 2 Mando squads, and I'm expecting Casca's role to grow in this upcoming season to a point where her absence from the game would be notable. To do this, CG could start looking at separating the Mandalorians by giving Bo-Katan counterparts that make her a viable leadership, paired with armor and boosting some of the other underused Mandos. Alternately, CG could look to separate the Mandalorians by creating Death Watch, Paz Vizsla being the more prominent one these days, but for the Clone Wars watchers, Pre-Vizsla would actually make more sense and is a more notable character that is currently absent from the game. He could be a Death Watch leader and allow Maul to still carry Canderous, Jango, Bo, and then Pre-Vizsla, possibly even Paz Vizsla with Armorer, filling out a secondary squad. So the Mandalorians are a faction that I would look at giving some attention if they're unloved on your roster. Next we have Gungi, the Jedi Wookiee from Clone Wars, going to be in Bad Batch Season 2, and we have that Wookiee mission in Territory Battles. Might be too early for this one, but the chances of us seeing him in-game are higher than ever. To round out the character talk portion of this video, there's 2 guys I want to talk about here that might be too good to be marquee releases at this point. They might be better candidates for Conquest, the first of which is Saw Gerrera. A few months ago, a year ago, easily a marquee release, but as time progresses, his profile only increases, and he might be elevated to a Conquest release, especially within the context of there are fewer and fewer characters worthy of that kind of treatment, and Saw may have elevated himself up into that spot. He started out in Clone Wars, was in Rogue One, we just saw him in Andor, he was in Bad Batch Season 1, and we might see him in Bad Batch Season 2. He was in Fallen Order, and he might be in Survivor, Jedi Survivor. So he's an easy thematic release that could really fit in at any moment, which is also why we might not see him right now. So even though he has been a big candidate for a character I've been expecting to see, I'm actually slightly down on him only because you could release him at any point. So why do it now when so many other characters make a lot of sense? And those other characters might not make as much sense later. Now with Saw, I see him as a flexible rebel tank and leader that could elevate a number of rebel squads. I think Sana is unfinished. I see her getting a boost at some point, possibly with Saw if he is a marquee release, kind of like how Mon Mothma was elevated with Kyle Katarn being released. But that could change, because I could also see Radis as another work in progress squad. So Saw could fit there. If he is a Conquest unit though, he's going to be a leader and not a side character, and then that could change and affect a number of other squads. Bib Fortuna is the next character I have been talking about since this video series began a little over a year ago. He's been showing up a lot lately, and like Saw, his timing makes sense at almost any point. He was in Bad Batch Season 1, that's where this screenshot is from, but he was in Mando Season 2, he was in Book of Boba Fett. He deserves to be in the game, and he is the obvious candidate for a Jabba lifter unit. And when we look at the timing of Maul and Kat and their relationships to their GL, it was in that 4 to 6-ish month range. And with Jabba, we're getting to that point where if he follows the same pattern, we would see Bib Fortuna or whoever his lifter unit be announced, possibly as soon as this next conquest, but more likely in the next conquest cycle, so technically just after this quarter. So whether or not you are going after Jabba right now, working on your Hut Cartel would make a lot of sense to take advantage of Bib Fortuna if you are a active Conquest player. I've gotten a lot of use out of my Hut Cartel squad at lower stars and Gear 11. They're well worth it. And now we got to address Red 5, Luke's X-Wing. I've been anticipating this one for I think about a year. It's another obvious Conquest unit that has been teased for, I think, approaching 6 months now. So maybe we get it, maybe we don't. The only reason I think we might not see it this quarter is because it's already been 6 months, what's another 3, and because the Scythe is about to be unlocked. And I'm not sure how much time CG wants to give to having a new viable fleet added to the game. Do they want to rapidly release one ship in Conquest and then another ship in Conquest? They haven't done that yet. Or maybe they want it to breathe for a little bit and maybe we get another Conquest cycle before we see it. Because the question is, how do they add it to the game? It's not going to be a Galactic Chase. It doesn't deserve that, which means it has to be a Conquest unit, or it needs to be a legendary event or something equivalent like how the Falcon was. That's really the only ways we can see a ship of this reputation and mythology within Star Wars. But really, it might be just the next Conquest unit and I'm overthinking it. And it's something that we'll be figuring out in the next couple weeks because this Conquest cycle is over and CG will need to announce the next one. Last thing, I've been saying a lot of other videos in my Grand Arena videos, and I just want to make sure that I say it here, is the Raven's Claw is an unfinished fleet. Biggs doesn't really work in it, and it would be cool to have an X-Wing squadron in the game. So adding that ship to that fleet is a way to round it out and make it functional. I'm going to quickly address some Omicrons that I think could be some possibilities for the quarter. Most of these I've brought up in the past. Cad Bane, deserving character right now. He's kind of middling. We were required to relic him up for the Executor. So giving him an Omicron that would elevate him to his reputation and how a lot of the community feels about him would make a lot of sense, like in that Savage Oppress kind of way where that Omicron really changed his character from bad to a must-have Ami. Something like that for Cad Bane I think is completely plausible, especially with how both Bad Batch Season 1 brought his profile up and Book of Boba Fett. Clone Wars Chewbacca, this is another one with that Wookiee mission in the territory battles. Always been a joke character within the community. Omicron might be make him a viable leader for a Wookiee group of characters for that TB mission. And then the vets. If you're a longtime player, you'll know how much of a pain these characters were to farm and unlock when they were released to the game. Newer players aren't going to be aware of that because their profile has diminished since then. So it doesn't feel like these characters are notable or special in any way, but I still think of them as characters that maybe should have more significance in the game than they do. They never really had it. And Omicron with one of them has always made a lot of sense to me. And we'll wrap it up there. These quarterly speculation videos usually don't have a free-to-play gearing appended to the end of them, so we'll bring that back in the next talk video, which I expect to be fairly soon. But we're also due to have the single shard farming video that we do every 6 months. So that'll be unless CG throws something out there, that'll be the next video we do. And then there's a few other videos I want to do to wrap up the year and to start off this new one. But thank you for watching. Be safe out there, everyone. Be excellent to each other. This is Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes.